Hey, what's going on, guys? Earlier this year, I had been working behind the scenes on a GBWC, a Gunpla Builders World Cup entry, and so far I've not shared it with you guys publicly, but that's what I'm going to do in today's video. I didn't want to share this until the contest results were announced. They have now been announced. Unfortunately, I did not win, but the winner, I just want to say a big congratulations to the winners. First of all, Builderpan, who's going to be the representative here for the US. As soon as I saw the entry, I kind of knew that that was going to be the winner. It's fantastic. It's amazing. Definitely check it out. Definitely follow him on social media, but also a big congratulations to the second and third place winners, DNC Plamo and GBWC as well. Just congratulations to those guys. So because of the time restraint that I was under in working on mine, I didn't really record much work in progress. So there's a little bit of that you'll see maybe here at the beginning of the video, and then mostly I just want to kind of talk to you guys about my entry. It's going to be kind of a lengthy explanation just to kind of talk about everything, and I'm sorry that I didn't like chronicle it in work in progress videos as I was going along the way, but like I said, it was a very short amount of time that I had to do a lot, kind of amongst other responsibilities that I have, so I just kind of didn't really have the time to, actually record a bunch of the work in progress and share that. But if I'm planning on entering next year, which I'm not totally decided about yet, but if I do, it might be something that I actually will record more of the process more and share more of that with you guys. That would be better for me and for my channel and for you guys to kind of watch along. It's just that with how GBWC rules work, I'm just not sure if it's really a good idea if I'm making an entry that I actually, hope might win. Then I'm not sure if having videos out ahead of time about it is something that might hurt me or not. I'm not entirely clear on that. So that's kind of why I didn't post anything about this publicly before now, and why I might still be hesitant about doing it even next year if I'm going to enter again or not. I'm not sure. But anyway, let's get on with the video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Thanks so much for checking out the build, and I'm looking forward to hearing your guys' thoughts. Any criticism you guys might have, positive, negative, whatever you guys might want to share only helps for me to maybe hopefully possibly do better next year. I kind of know where, different areas of the build could have been better, could have been improved, with more time, with more skill. There's always more that you could do, but here's what I came up with. So anyway, let's get on with it. Hey, what's going on, guys? Today is Monday, July 28th. And over the weekend, I had the realization that the upcoming USA deadline for the Gunpla Builders World Cup is going to actually be September 30th, leaving just about 9.5 weeks left before the deadline comes up. Now, I've had an idea for an entry that I've wanted to work on for a number of years, and it's kind of shifted and changed a few times kind of along the way in terms of what I want to make, but I'm pretty set on what I want to make. But this realization over the weekend that I basically more or less had about 9 weeks before the deadline for this year, I kind of thought, okay, well, that's maybe enough time to finish by the deadline, but I definitely can't wait any longer. Otherwise, I'm just gonna be waiting for next year. And every year, when it comes down to the finals there in Japan, I'm always filled with regret just because I feel like I should have at least tried to build something, at least tried to enter here in the US. And so I just thought, can I really get this finished in 9 weeks? Or would I rather just chug along working on my other projects and just put it off to, again, maybe next year, or, and then just be having that same regret again when the finals come around that I didn't even try. And I thought, I just have to try. I just have to try, even though I've got 5 other projects on the desk, smaller projects that I just, I'm closer to finishing. I'm just going to put everything else, other side projects, just going to put them all on hold for the next 2 months. Just only focus on this and really, really try to get this done for GBWC. Just at the very least, I can say that I got it done. I entered, I made what I wanted to make. And although 9 weeks is a very short amount of time, it's, I think, going to be enough. So we will see. At the moment of recording this video, I'm actually not even sure if I'm going to show this video to you guys before the deadline of the contest, just because I'm a little bit kind of anxious about just kind of sharing what I'm working on before the judging is actually done. So this may be all going to video content that's going to be coming out much later. I've talked about the project a little bit before, but just to get into kind of what my basic idea is, it is going to have 5 main elements. The first one just being the base itself. It's going to hold up everything, and it's going to be like a small sort of diorama basically, and it's going to be featuring 3 mobile suits, one being the Unicorn Gundam Master Grade kit in Unicorn mode, on top of the Type 89 base jabber here. So that's going to be our second and third elements, the Unicorn and the base jabber. And the fourth and fifth elements are going to be 2 Master Grade Rezels, one being a Commander Type Pt.1 just being a standard type. So basically, what it's going to come down to is the unicorn on top of the Type 89 base jabber, not like riding it, but more so looking like it's just being transported. So it's not going to be an action scene, which I think is going to be something that's going to be a little bit different about what I'm making compared to what we typically see a lot of in GBWC. And then the two Resol units are basically the escorts for the transportation of the unicorn. And then, like I said, the base is just going to consist of, I think, probably a mix of wood and then some kind of space stuff. And I'd want to kind of stray away from like space debris, because as I'm portraying this, and we'll talk some more about this later on, it's going to be kind of a lengthy video series talking about this, because especially because there's a lot of thought process that needs to go into a project like this. Why are we going to show it like this? What's the reasoning behind everything? And space debris kind of, to me, indicates that this is taking place in a battlefield, or at least what previously was a battlefield. And what I want to show is basically kind of the unicorn kind of just before the start of the actual series itself, when it's maybe just being transported. And so this scene should not look like it's taking place in a battlefield. So I think any kind of like space debris or space wreckage is probably not the right look for what I want to go for. Probably it's going to be some other sort of like mechanical structure, but not anything that's like actually damaged or anything. So that'll be one part of it. And I'm still kind of wrapping my head around exactly how I want that part to look. That's kind of one of the things that's still a bit of trouble for me at the moment. But one of the other aspects that I was thinking was going to cause the most trouble for me was also going to be just the base jabber, because I was thinking that I was going to have to modify it more than I'm now realizing that I may have to, and I'll explain why in just a minute. But ultimately, I think actually I won't end up having to modify this all that much, which is great. That said, it does have a fair amount of seam lines and stuff on there, and then I am going to be making some further modifications and detail up kind of things here and there as well, just to make it look a bit more interesting. So I'm going to try to focus on one element at a time, and then I can kind of like on the side, whenever there's kind of in between time here and there, can also work on maybe starting to work on some of the preparation work or like small modification work to some of the other main elements. It's going to be a lot of work to try to get done in this amount of time. So because I'll definitely be on a bit of a time crunch, this video series is not going to be super comprehensive about like, I'm going to add a panel line here, I'm going to add like some notch detail, or I'm going to add some different like detail parts, or use this part here, this like that kind of like normal level of detail that you may expect for some kind of like a work in progress video. I want this video series to be more just kind of like a general overarching, like here's how the piece is taking shape and kind of what I'm doing with it, just because I am on a time crunch, and the more time that I'm spent recording the process just kind of slows the process down a little bit, and I do need to work at kind of a brisk pace for this particular project if I have any hope of getting it done on time. So with that in mind, I apologize for kind of the long wind up to getting into this video. I hope that you guys will understand that. And with that, let's go ahead and head down here and start talking about the base jabber, kind of what are some things that I have in mind going on with this, and what are some of the issues and fixes that I think I'm going to need to make with this. So here for the base jabber, like I said, one of the main issues is just going to be seam lines. It's just got these seam lines that kind of go all the way around the side here, all the way back to there. Seam line all around this front section here, seam lines on these big fuel tanks here on the bottom, and there's some parts omitted. I don't have all the parts on here at the moment. It's just some parts just kind of off, just to kind of help to visualize everything. But this is kind of made up of like a few different sections: the main center plate, and then these parts here on the side, the front part, the back parts, and then the large fuel tanks there on the bottom. And so with this being an RE100 kit, the construction is pretty rudimentary, but some nice detail around on there, which I can take advantage of. And then I'll probably add a little bit more detail here and there as well, which one of the more challenging seam lines to remove going to be this section here on the side. You have these like little bits which are meant to be like little vernier sections here for like adjustment, I suppose. But they made the seam line going right through there, and then for some reason, like inside that detail right there, they made it as like a panel line detail inside there. So I don't know why. It's kind of weird, but definitely going to have to work on these sections in particular. And you can see that these like kind of frame sections here will enclose the part on the inside, which I want to paint separately. So I need to modify this to be able to have that come off and be like a separate part that I can remove without having to paint and mask, which I think will be much easier if I can do it. But otherwise, no major modification is going to be required. What I was thinking I was going to have to do, because my plan is to have the unicorn mounted on the top something here like this, as I said, just to make it look like it's being transported. Now the problem was that I was thinking, well, okay, it doesn't lay flat because of the backpack, so we'll have the backpack off. But then The other problem is, even if we could get it to lay flat, is that the legs are too long and also the arms are too wide. Even with the arms pressed like right up against the Gundam, it just kind of almost doesn't quite fit in this space here. So I thought, all right, well, maybe I can work my way around that, but I definitely need to make it longer. In which case, there's a fairly convenient line that I could essentially cut this middle section right down the middle like that, and then add in something here in the middle and basically extend the front and back half forward and back, and then I would have to modify these sections here on the side to be able to fit onto there. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it some more, as I just kind of like took some time to just kind of look at it and work on it a little bit, just kind of mentally, I realized I kind of don't really need to do that. And I can also keep the backpack on to mount the Gundam not flat against like the bed of the base jabber essentially, but have some mounting parts in between that will hold it basically elevated slightly above there like that. And so then I thought, okay, well, what can I use for that? And I thought to check some parts here from the customized scene-based truss base version, which is just this kind of set that has these like truss parts and things like that. But with these parts, I can make some parts here like this, which will have to be like modified a bit. I don't want these like ugly pegs sticking off here, but I might be able to use these pegs to actually attach it down onto the base. Essentially, to make a support system here on the bed of the base jabber that will then hold up the Gundam, not maybe like functionally, but just it will look like that. As far as like actually functionally attaching it onto here, I'll probably just make something just like a peg from the back of the hip section and maybe the back of the backpack that will actually attach it onto there. While this system of supports, it'll be 2 at the top and then 2 at the bottom here of a little bit different sizes that I have for these. And those will just be there basically looking like they're holding up the Gundam, connecting the Gundam to the base jabber without actually needing to do so. So that I'm actually pretty pleased with, because that means there's much less modification that I actually have to do with this. It will mean I will have to figure out this support system and kind of figure out exactly where these need to be placed on there. And also, like I said, just clean these up and just probably modify these a little bit just to make them look a little bit nicer. But at least the main mechanical structure look is there, and I think overall it's actually going to work out pretty well. The other issue that I have with this is just the actual like cockpit canopy here at the front. It's just a sticker over this part here, and so I was thinking about what to actually do about that. If I wanted to try to actually cut that out and replace it with a clear part in there or something, I think probably what I'm going to opt to do is just to paint it. I think it's just going to be the easiest way. In a perfect world, I think probably would look best to have that cut out and replaced with an actual clear part, but based on the amount of time that we're talking here, I think painting that will work fine for our purposes. There's also some more stickers like here for these front little bits. Need to remove those, and for the time being, I'm just going to work on doing seam line removal and modification to this just in order to do the seam line removal, and then we'll come back and talk about mounting the Gundam on here. Probably be like the next step in terms of then adding some more little details or something onto this as well. All right, and so just a little update on that here. Coming back the next day, what I've done is basically taken these part here, this frame part, as I mentioned, which was going to be a problem because there's a seam line all the way through there. It's just 2 halves. So basically taking it from being 2 parts to 5 parts. So this section right here, I cut that out and glued those 2 halves together. So that's one solid piece there. And then these parts here on the side, also cut and remove those, glued the seams so that these will be a separate part. And so basically the frame is now these 2 parts here, and I scribed the edge of this to turn it into a panel line detail between these 2 main halves. So one half will just go on the top and bottom there like that. And then I'll have to make a little pin on the back of these to be able to stick onto there later on. So there's still some work needs to do on those. And then this part here can just fit over that bit right there like that. So still a lot more work to do, but that's just kind of the general idea of how I went around solving that problem there. We had like these parts here at the back end, which have a seam down the sides of here. So I've just gone ahead and just did like the first pass of seam line removal on that. Still some work that needs to be done, some putty and rescribing and stuff on that. Unfortunately, the fit wasn't like that perfect on these. So what I did was basically cut off that last cap part there and then just trench out the gap there for those pegs to slide on, so that now this part can just slide onto here easily just like that, and it's good to go. So that part was pretty simple. Oh yeah, I also had to cut out this section here, which also isn't completely done. I need to clean that up a bit more, and then I'll maybe work on some other detail parts to go ahead and like fill in here and stuff. So like I said, there's still a lot more work left to do here on this. The front part also going to take a good amount of work. This is just two halves, just glued those together, and then I need to just basically modify it in the same way to be able to fit onto the front here. The problem with this is that, yeah, some parts of the seam got removed like pretty easy on the first pass, but there's some bits that just didn't fit together like super well, so it's going to take some putty around on some of these parts here, you can see, and over here. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit more putty work, another pass of like putty and clean up here on the seam, and then some more sanding, some more detail work on this, and then we can get some primer on it and just kind of see how it's all looking. We might need to do some additional cleanup. Here's how it's looking so far. Okay, here we are, fast forwarding about a week now to August 6th, and I'm just kind of getting the shape of the whole scene here. As you can see, I've got it kind of temporarily, the unicorn mounted onto the base jabber how I want it here, just to kind of help visualize it. The base jabber is just about done. I'll go over a couple of the different modifications that I made, but to hold the unicorn to here, there's actually just one peg in the back that's what's really holding it there, but then also made these clamps. There's 4 clamps, 2 on the sides of the legs, and then 2 just underneath the kind of chest right there. And so I haven't done anything on the unicorn yet. Let me just pull this off of here. There we go, removing that here, you can see. So these clamps, yeah, were basically just made using some different joint parts and things like that. So those are able to be flexed and moved around into different positions and actually work really quite well. They're just kind of fixed to the base of the base jabber here pretty simply, and not permanently at the moment, so that they can be removed for painting. Added this little radome here, disc radome there on the top of the base jabber, and did a little bit of like scribing and refining for some of the little details around here. Added this little bit at the front, for example. Added a couple mechanical looking bits in and around here. At the back right there as well, some tubing and some parts there that'll go into where the main thrusters are. Re-drilled out some of the holes there and also added a couple more. And yeah, made it so that those top and bottom parts have a panel line going through. And then these parts here, these were probably the most challenging aspects so far because of the seam line running through there and everything. These took quite a while to get rid of that seam and kind of refine, again, the details, but then these will just be able to be plugged in and then glued into place there like that after painting. And then also made a modification here to like the landing gear, so it was like coming like straight down, and I didn't really like it. It looked kind of ugly, so I cut and like reattached that part in a different way so that the landing gear, instead of being down like that, it's actually just going to be stowed, where it's made to look like it's just retracted. So rather than being down when it's actually in flight, the landing gear goes up and then folds to the side there like that. I think it just makes for a much more kind of just like streamlined look to that. And that's kind of like the main modifications, I suppose. Just basically removing the seam lines on these parts took a good amount of time because I had to go over those a couple times, had to like re-scribe out some of these panel line details here. Have a little bit more sanding and a little bit more kind of detail work to be done on this, and then it's kind of basically done. As far as how it's going like time-wise, I think I'm right about on track. I would have liked to have been at this stage maybe like 2 days earlier, like on Monday. I think would have been a good day to be at this stage, just time-wise. I know it doesn't seem like a huge difference, but you know, when I'm working on this limited time, you know, every day is going to count. So I'm going to try to get this basically everything done, the last bit of sanding, the last bit of details all done on this today, if not like tomorrow, and then try to get some primer on this by the end of the day tomorrow so that we can kind of check everything. If I need to do any more work, kind of refining any of the details or going over some of the removed seam lines again, I can do a little bit more of that cleanup. But I want it by the end of this week to be essentially ready for paint. That's my goal. So within our kind of like how I originally thought of it, breaking it down as like 2 weeks for each section. This won't be done within the 2 weeks. It won't be done, but if it's ready for paint, then I think that's pretty good. So I'll be happy with that. As I think other parts like the unicorn, for example, I am going to do like a little bit of work on this. For the most part, though, not going to do a whole lot of like actual like modification on this. So like this stage, for example, should take a little bit less time, hopefully, but of course we will see. So that's where I'm at the moment.